Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Back to 12 podcast. I'm RC Maxfield alongside Lyle and Jr. And today's pod, well, we're going to talk about Tyree Wilson and how one of us believed too much of the draft buzz late in the process, and the other one was basically spot on. And it doesn't take a genius to understand who that person is if you watch anything we do when it comes to football. We'll talk about Tyree going to the Raiders. We'll talk about what that means for Texas Tech, and then maybe talk about these early top 25 polls that are coming out for Texas Tech football and expectations. But Lyle, how you doing today, my guy?
Oh man, as always, anytime I get to hop on the podcast with my partner in crime, my brother, it's a good day. So, like I said, enjoy getting to watch a little bit, seeing you know, Tyree get drafted so high, putting on for Texas Tech, and just seeing people get that opportunity to make dreams come true. So, that's probably one of the coolest parts is just seeing the emotions of all their hard work and coming through. And so it gives us something to talk about and get closer to the people that subscribe and hang with us and follow with us. So anytime I get on here and talk to you and you're still with me and not taken by, ESPN, CBS, or any of those type places, it's a good day.
There you go. Speaking of subscribers, 135 away from 8K.
Let's go.
I think we can get there by the end of May, people.
Mm.
I really do. Appreciate all of the day ones. I see y'all constantly in the comments. Got a lot of new people, obviously, subscribe to the channel as well, but definitely means a lot to Lyle and I how much y'all interact with us. And we are by far the most interacted and watched Texas Tech community on YouTube. So it's kind of crazy how much growth we've seen. And just, wow, think about this. Like the first time we did a podcast, we kind of like, it was almost like a rough draft. And if I guarantee you, if we both go look at it, we'll both say, "Oh my God, that was awful." That's just usually how it is. And at the time, I guarantee you, we thought we were wizards or something. But we haven't even done this for a year, man, and it's wild how quick there's just all these new subscribers have come in and this community's been built. So really does mean a lot. Not going anywhere for a long time, and football season is going to be a lot of fun here on the Back to 12 podcast. And shoot, maybe even Lyle break down some X's and O's for you guys on videos and stuff, because Lord knows you want to hear from him, because he's the only guy doing that in terms of former player in the Texas Tech football podcast space. Probably the guy I would trust the most when it comes down to it. Just saying.
Hey, without a doubt, man. We're gonna get those videos. I've been slacking, but we're gonna get some videos, start doing some cool stuff. And RC got swag, so we're gonna have to, make a little intro video. I see every morning on First Take and all that. We gotta get our game up. So we're gonna get right and get it tight. So be
There you
on the
go.
lookout for that.
Speaking of getting right, Tyree Wilson, you got a bag, maybe two, maybe three, depending on your definition.
Mhm.
And that suit, pristine, chef's kiss, Tyree.
Mhm.
But before we talk about that, Lyle, I was dead wrong on my prediction. I believe too much in the draft type. Shocker that I was wrong on this. I said he'd go second to the Texans. You said six to the Lions. Um, I don't think either of us had the Cardinals picking 2 and 3, though, and trading their own pick to the Texans. Good for you, Texans. You're going to have a chance to get Arizona, excuse me. Flip that in my head. Good for you, Arizona. You're going to have a chance to get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. next year.
Mhm.
Congratulations. You were much closer than I was on that front. But let's talk about Tyree and the fit first and foremost for him in Las Vegas. Lyle, in my mind, in terms of where he could have gone in the top 8, because there was no way in hell, in my opinion, he was getting out of top 8.
Mhm.
Um, the spot you picked, the Lions or the Raiders, those were the two best spots to me outside of the clear number one, in my opinion, which was Seattle in the top 7. But him landing alongside of a guy like Max Crosby, who's going to be there long term, and then a guy that everyone's comparing him to, and Chandler Jones to be his mentor, like, I don't think you could have scripted this any better if you were Tyree in his camp in terms of where he landed in the NFL draft.
Uh, I agree. I think those are great mentors. I think honestly, I think in my personal opinion, Texans and Lions would be a better fit as they're kind of rebuilding and more so of defensive minded coaches. And I think it's still a good spot for them. But as you know, Vegas, their head coach is an offensive guy. So usually you move how your head coach is, and there's always a head coach that's going to be offense or defense in the game. So I think it's good in a sense, but I always feel like from Mike Leach, if you know Mike Leach is an offensive guy, so when we had practice, we didn't go off the field till offense won. And so I just think you know, those are the ultimate spots when you have a defensive guy that's been there and understands. And don't get me wrong, those DCs are this is what they do. They're top-notch defensive coordinators and do that. But like I said, I think those key are those guys that structure practice to make defense successful because that's what they do. And they're always, I don't care what coach says what or they're going to do this. You know, I'm an offensive guy. So we do a little bit lean more towards the offense than the defense, and that's just how it goes. So I think it's a good spot for him to be mentored, him be learned. But I also think, you know, a defensive minded coach with as well as what's the dude from the Lions that they just drafted from Michigan?
Aiden Hutchinson.
Aiden, you know, I think a younger guy that he can play with at the same time is also a spark. And, you know, sometimes those older guys, you learn a lot more from those older guys, but sometimes, you know, they're at the end of their career fighting for a spot. So you never know how that goes. You know, hopefully they do mentor him, but when you got a younger cat on the other side, you're more so getting the, hey man, let's do work. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. And then you got these older cats on their last contract, and no telling you do too good, you know what I'm saying, I might be out of here. So I think that's you know, as far as Chandler Jones, I think he has a couple more years left, but he's been in the league for a minute, you know, and he's getting older too. So I'm interested to see how that goes and you know how he's mentored, but he definitely will learn a lot. Like I said, the dude's been a Pro Bowler. You got a Pro Bowler on the line, and maybe they come in there and change that mindset. But I feel like the ultimate spot would have been the Lions of, you know, places, and they had the pick and then they traded it, so they had an opportunity to get him and go. I guess they wanted to go a different direction, which
Just
I
a
totally
weird draft.
understand. But
Just a
I,
weird draft by the Lions. Like
yeah,
it made no sense. Like
yeah,
weird, weird,
yeah.
weird, weird. I mean, I like the Lions pick. I mean, personally for me, I think Seattle would have been the best spot just because Pete Carroll. And it seems like if Seattle likes you, especially with this regime, you're going to be good. Like they hardly miss.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to like draft picks and stuff. So I agree. I think that the Raiders are a good landing spot though, because you mentioned that transition. I just think he's the Chandler Jones replacement, not this year, but I think in the future, right? That way you have two bookend guys, Max Crosby, and then you got Tyree on the other side. You can mix and match both of those guys. They can move to both sides. They can play inside, outside, up, down, 3 technique, 5, whatever you need them to do. They can run it, right? And so I think that that's where they're building it. And again, you know, it's cool to like wide receivers. It's cool to like running backs. But let's face it, the game is won and lost in one particular area, and it's the trenches. If you don't win the trenches, guys like you can't get the football because Graham Harrell wouldn't have time to get it out there, right?
That's
And
facts.
so on and so forth. So I do like the landing spot, probably a little bit more than you, but I agree. I think there was probably a landing spot or two that would have been better. But overall, I think he's in a really good spot. But I really want to talk about this, though, when it comes to Tyree, because I think these kind of things, especially in a new regime, and that's what I'm calling Joey Maguire, a new staff at Texas Tech. I think this can add a brick, let's call it, to the foundation that I don't think people take seriously enough, in the sense of how this narrative that Texas Tech has historically, right, in terms of they don't play defense. You know, it's just a bunch of points scored. And I think that negatively impacts recruiting to some degree, just because, again, kids listen to that stuff rightly or wrongly. And it could be, I mean, realistically, this is 2 or 3 staffs ago, right, that this narrative was built. It's not about this staff anymore. How do you think seeing a guy like Tyree going in the top 10 of the NFL draft can help switch that narrative for Texas Tech. But I think even more importantly, Lyle, how do you think it can impact recruiting for Texas Tech? Like, I'm not thinking they're going to go out and get every 4- and 5-star guy on the defensive line now, but I do think that it maybe changes a little bit of the thinking that some of these recruits, and maybe even more importantly, the high school coaches that are helping them through the recruiting process, view Texas Tech.
Hey, man, like I said, for those who watched the spring game, you saw his replacements. They're huge. And so just watching, they look like a D1 program. A Power 5, sorry. They look like D1, but a Power 5 program, a true Power 5 program, defensively and offensively. Like, they're huge. Like, I felt out of place being on the sideline, standing down there. I really felt out of place. And that's hard for me to do because I play with some big people, some good people. But, I mean, they've done a good job. I think it's the thing with recruiting, especially in West Texas. We disagree on this. I tell people it's hard to recruit to West Texas. I tell people that all the time. A lot of people disagree with me, but I think once you are known for something, you start, like once the quarterbacks, we've always been known for having good quarterbacks. So quarterbacks want to come here. Receivers, we've been known for receivers, but not really until Crab came and Joe Falani and Jared Hicks. And I mean, we had some olders, but I'm saying as a whole, as a first group where it was like Joe, Jared, and we had several people that could, and then the next class, Danny, Crab, a lot of people that played in the NFL. I think you got to get known for doing that. So I think he's starting the regime of, hey, man, they got a DN going every year. And also from the NFL scouts, they're like, hey, that's what they're doing. They're producing. This school produces. So I think it all folds together, and scouts are going to be taking a peek and say, man, last year they had this guy. And you could see already on defensively how much bigger we are. And I'm saying we've been the biggest. This is the biggest we've been in 10 years, maybe ever. I don't know. But, I mean, it's a major difference on how big we are. And so I think, like I said, he's opening the door. He didn't even know the foundation he's doing it, and it lays it down for recruits to come, but he's also laying the foundation for players to come because for players to go to the league, because there's a big misconception about Texas Tech that we're a system player. System players, that's been going on for forever. Graham Harrell was up for the Heisman and was a system player and didn't get drafted in the first 3 rounds. We've had multiple receivers score a lot of touchdowns in the season and be system players. And so I think he's kind of breaking that system player, and I argue with people a lot about this. Do systems help players? Absolutely. If he didn't come here, do I think he'd be a top 10 pick? Probably not. But if he wasn't super talented, he wouldn't be a top 10 pick.
It doesn't matter anyway.
So they go hand in hand, but people get confused on, well, it's a system. It's the Gary Patterson system, so everyone's going to go be good in it. That's not how it works in the air raid. Michael Crabtree had 19 touchdowns, and no one else did. And it's not because the system helped him get 19 touchdowns, but he was good. That's why he freaking got 22 touchdowns, because of his talent. So I think that's the big misconception that comes with Texas Tech from former players, is just, hey, that's a system. So they're only good because they're there. And I think that's a big misconception that hurts a lot of players. So I think what he did was starting to change that. Like Texas Tech is not a defensive school. That's been going on for 30 years that we're not a defensive school. So he's changing that.
I think he's one of those bricks that is changing it, though, right? Like it's not just Tyree changing that. I think if we're going to give the most credit to who is changing that narrative, it's Joey Maguire, right? Like that's the fact of it. And a guy that is talked about, but I don't think nearly talked about enough in terms of his presence, in terms of how instrumental he is to Joey Maguire's success as a head coach. Joey Maguire will say it, but I don't think he's talked about enough in like media circles or anything like that. It's Tim DeRuyter. Like Tim DeRuyter does not get enough credit for how good of a defensive end coach he is in terms of producing talent at that specific position, right? And he's still a good coordinator when it comes to all around too. But when it comes to getting guys that have been in elite athletic traits on the edge to the NFL, the bro does not miss. Think about this for a second. In terms of guys that Tim DeRuyter has had drafted in the first round, and there's been 3 off the edge, that in itself is impressive. Just having that many from one DC is impressive. Tyree Wilson was the lowest drafted, and he went 7. Like, that's wild, right? You have Von Miller, Hall of Famer. Like, there's no doubt about it. Von Miller's a Hall of Famer. Tim DeRuyter coached him at A&M. And Von Miller, there's plenty of interviews out there that have talked about how Tim DeRuyter elevated his game, right? Kayvon Thibodeau with the Giants, a Rookie of the Year candidate on the defensive side last year in the NFL, right? 5th overall pick out of Oregon. He's talked about how Tim DeRuyter's helped him. Tyree has done the same thing. But on the recruiting trail, I think the reason that Tyree is going to be that fundamental building block, he's not much of a talker. I think everybody can see that, right? But this man is about actions. And when you look at what he does on the field, right? Hey, I'm going to handle business. Like, is there a world that I see Tyree Wilson not living up to his potential in the NFL? Yeah. I mean, how many guys truly live up to their full potential in the NFL, Lyle? Like, maybe 5%, maybe. You know what I mean? Right? But do I think Tyree Wilson is going to be a very good player in the NFL and be productive and have a 10-year career as long as injuries don't, derail it? Yes, he's got every trait to do it. And so I think that visibility of seeing a guy, and you've got another guy in Jordan Brooks as well, like seeing these guys on the defensive side of the football can say, hey, you're going to help propel that narrative and changing it in terms of, listen, when Texas Tech is thought about nationally, it's the air raid, right? Like it's in the name, right? Air Raiders. That's what it is, right? And so it's like these guys are help changing that. And another aspect that is going to help change this is the fact that Tyree genuinely loves Texas Tech, right? Like if there was a guy that was drafted in his position that didn't love Texas Tech and didn't talk about it as much as Tyree, I don't think we'd even really be talking about how this helps Texas Tech long-term. But Tyree Wilson, every chance he gets to talk about Texas Tech, you can watch it in his Raider introduction interview. Every time somebody said Texas Tech, he just smiled a little bit. Yeah. Like you saw it. And so I think that's a big thing. But really, for me, you're going to be able to go out there now, if you're Joey Maguire and crew, whether that's Tim DeRuyter, Coach Perry, Kitley, whoever it is, right? It doesn't matter what side of the football you're on. It's like, who gives a damn how many stars you had? If you come to Texas Tech, we have the coaches to get you where you want to go, right? And that's huge.
Yeah. And I think, and I disagree a little bit on that because, like I said, I don't think that he's on the level yet of Nick Saban, Mike Leach, where kids are.
Oh, no, he's not. Absolutely.
But I'm saying they're not going to play for Joey Maguire right now. Eventually,
no, but this is a good first step, right? Like, this is a huge first step.
But I think, same with like you said, like the linebacker Jordan, right? Who is his coach?
It's a good point.
That's what I'm saying.
But they had, to be fair, they had like 4 linebacker coaches. It felt like during his time.
That's my point. Like, unless you're Nick Saban, Mike Leach, what he's doing is it helps Joey Maguire more than the vice versa. You know what I'm saying? Because kids are going to say, they're not going to say, oh, Tim DeRuyter is like Von Miller. No, I didn't know Von Miller was coached by Tim DeRuyter, but I do know he went to A&M. I do know he's a Hall of Famer. So I think on those aspects, unless you're at the highest level as far as a coach, and it's no knock because I think Joey Maguire is going to be there. I think he's a phenomenal coach. But these kids have to do that. It's the same with, like, if you go ask a kid, hey, man, who was Michael Crabtree's coach? They don't know. And, they just know that he went to Texas Tech, and that's how you get the recruit. So I think eventually, we all know Nick Saban because he's done it year after year after year after year. So now people say, oh, yeah, that's a Nick Saban kid. But for the most part, like where we're at in the phase of where we're at is, oh, you went to Texas Tech. We're getting one, you know what I'm saying? And people actually know who these guys are in Texas Tech because, like I said, for a long time, with Wes Welker, when he first came, people didn't know where he went to school, and we didn't have
same with Zach Thomas.
Yeah, no one knew. And the same thing, who is Zach Thomas's coach? Don't nobody know, or no one cares. And that's the part about coaching, being a selfless leader and doing that. Yes, you have big impacts on their life, but at the end of the day, I don't know any Hall of Famers college coach, but I do know where they went to school. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Unless it's Nick Saban. I could say, oh, he played for Nick Saban, or he played for Dabo, or he played for Mike. Like, so I just think, that's the part where he's elevated so much. Kids, like I said, they're not going to play right now for Tim DeRuyter. They're going to play because he had a seventh pick overall. They're going to play because he's in the league. And I think eventually once you do that, then kids will say, oh, I'm going to play for DeRuyter because but I don't think any of our coaches are on that level. I think Kit,
I think
honestly,
probably Tim is the closest one though, right
I
now.
disagree. I think it's Kit, like, because Kit
Well,
is
from a longevity standpoint, you know what I mean? Like, and this is not a knock on Kit. Like,
mhm.
Kit he's it. He's a very good offensive coordinator. The problem is like from a longevity standpoint, he's only been an offensive coordinator calling plays for what is this going to be his 5th year? Correct me if I'm wrong, right? 2 at
I'm
Houston
not sure.
No. Houston Baptist or whatever they're called now. I think they changed their name. Did you know that?
I
Yeah, they
saw that.
changed their name for some reason. I don't know why. Shout out to Murph in the background.
Somewhere.
But 2 there, 1 at Western Kentucky, 1 at Tech. That's 4 years, I think, right? And it's not a knock on Kit. It's just he is as old as he is, and he got the opportunity when he
Right.
got it.
But I'm saying from a different aspect, like you're looking at longevity. I'm looking from a kid's aspect, a student athlete. Like I don't know anybody that Tim DeRuyter coached. I don't even know who Tim DeRuyter is. I do know who Kitley is because he's associated with Kliff Kingsbury, who coached Patrick Mahomes, who's an MVP of the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So that's the part that we don't, you're looking at it from an older
I get
standpoint.
that from that
As a
perspective. Sure.
kid, I'm like, oh, Kitley, man, he's with Kliff. He throws the ball. He had Patty Mahomes. Like that's the part that puts him over. Like Tim DeRuyter is a quiet dude. I've never, you know what I'm saying? I
Sure.
think that's the difference, and that's the part that the other side a lot of people don't think of when it comes to that. They're just like, yeah, well, Tim DeRuyter, that makes perfect sense. It's actually the smarter move. But as a kid, I'm more excited that Kitley coached Patrick Mahomes than I am that he
It
is.
almost feels like a marketing problem. Like
It
the
is.
way you described it right there, like,
It is.
and I'm not saying it's right or wrong the way you described it. It's more so like, and I don't even think it's Tim DeRuyter has to market himself like this,
He has
but it's more so like, hey, market. Like I've
right.
got 3 dudes that have played off the and I think right now Joey Maguire is doing a good job of that in the portal, right? But I think there could also be a way of doing it, and they've done it a little bit on social media. But if I'm Tech, like I'm not lying to you, I'm doing that every month, maybe every
Bro,
2 weeks.
you're gonna
I'm
get
hyping that up.
you're gonna get me on a rampage for you can get me on a rampage for a whole deal, but I can't stress that enough that like they utilize it, but they don't use like Tim DeRuyter should be on there posting all the people. Hey, shout out to Tyree. This is who else I had. This is who else I had. So people that don't
Sure.
know see that, and I've
I
always
think it's
felt
a I
like
think it's a generation gap though, and again I'm not trying to like call out Tim DeRuyter's age or anything, but like most of the time, like older people, like it feels like there's 2 types of older people, not right or wrong either way. Ones that are highly functional in social media,
and
or
that
those that just don't want to use it or don't understand the importance of it in the modern world.
that's true. But I will say too, on Texas Tech behalf, I think Joey Maguire has done a great job. And
Same.
maybe it's just me feeling some type of way, but I feel like Texas Tech hasn't been great at promoting people on certain scenarios and certain
I
situations
think they've
as
gotten a
well.
lot better at it though. I thought they were and this isn't one of those things I don't really care at this point.
Mhm,
I thought they were awful in the Matt Wells era. And a lot of that had to do with Matt Wells.
mhm,
Because it just didn't feel like there was a lot of energy, right? I
mhm.
think social media wise, Texas Tech has with Joey Maguire, I
Yeah.
think they saw an opportunity and they ran with it. And I think they would even admit there's still growth potential there. But from a
Mhm,
standpoint of what it was under Matt Wells to Joey Maguire, I don't even think it's a complete 180. We're talking about multiple circles here. We're talking
mhm.
like we spun so many times around that I can't even keep track of how much better it is under Joey
Right.
Maguire than Matt Wells. And it's a process too. Like social media is ever changing. And the thing is like you can be good for a month and do everything right for a month. And then the next month, that idea that you had that month is obsolete. It doesn't matter anymore. So it's kind of crazy. But let's move on because I want to talk about expectations a little bit. But I think we both agree, even though we may have different opinions on it, Tyree getting drafted in the top 10 is nothing but a absolutely great thing for Texas Tech on the recruiting trail, period.
Shout out to Maguire and DeRuiter and everyone else that assisted, man. Shout out to them.
No doubt. Awesome. Also, shout out to these guys. They didn't get drafted, but they got UDFAs, contracts, or camp invites. We got Trey Wolf with the Titans. I'm a Titans fan. For those that follow me on Twitter, I truly believe Trey Wolf has a pretty solid shot to make the Titans roster because they do not want to pay a kicker a lot of money, and Randy Bullock is an Aggie. So let's move on. Sir Roderick Thompson gets signed by the Jets. Muddy Waters, one of the guys, in my opinion, or Saints, excuse me. So Trey Wolf goes to the Titans. Thompson goes to the Saints. Muddy Waters goes to the Jets. And I thought Muddy Waters should have been drafted. He was one of the most underrated players in the Big 12 last year on the defensive side of the football. Just my opinion. And then camp invites. Adrian Fry follows Sir Roderick Thompson down to the Bayou with the Saints. And then Chad Townsend gets a camp invite to the Texans. Overall, I mean, only one guy drafted from Texas Tech, obviously top 10 pick. You'll take that. But you've got, 6 guys there either getting camp invites, UDFAs, or drafted. That's a pretty solid year for Texas Tech, considering legitimately none of those guys were Joey Maguire's guys. Like, they're his guys, but he didn't recruit them in initially to Texas Tech. They were holdovers. So pretty good job by them to get that many guys to the next level. And I think that this goes into my next question, Lyle. I'm interested to hear it, but I want to ask the people first, and it's going to be the pinned comment down below. How many Red Raiders from the 2023 team this next year get drafted into the NFL draft? Let us know down in the comments below. Lyle, I know this is an impossible question, but I want to hear your take. And I did not give you any prep on this at all. That's why I love asking you these questions, because the best kind of prep is no prep on a podcast sometimes. How many Red Raiders do you think get drafted next year in the NFL draft?
I think 3. And I think one in the top 2 rounds.
Spicy. Who do you got in the top 2 rounds?
You already know. QB1.
Mort, really?
I love you, Mort. I really do. And you're going to be.
Wow. Tyler Shuck, huh?
Just watching him, man, he's like I said, that's been the thing for me. The trend is like seeing how smart it is and being able to know Kit and understand the offense and talk to Kit quite a bit. He does a lot of things that are from him. You know what I'm saying? And that's a special thing. Even with Taylor Potts, one of my brother for life, wouldn't be where I am without him. But Graham, the way that he changed majority of Mike's plays, and it's kind of, his personality. Graham always been Graham. He's going to make decisions. But when you have a quarterback on there that can make a decision, for those who don't know, like when we were in 08 playing OU, like literally I heard Graham call a play, OU call a play. Graham change it, OU change it. Graham change it like 5 times. Like I really got a headache before the ball was even snapped. And so when I see him go out there to the spring game and I talked to Kid about it, he did a couple things and I'm like, hey, you didn't call that, did you? He's like, no, he did it on his own. And it's massive gains, massive. It's just seeing the field as he has the ability, but quarterback, in my opinion, besides a little time, comes down to how smart you are. Like Tony Romo, y'all hear him on the announcement there. Oh man, how he is out extremely smart. I can't explain to you how smart these guys are and what they have to go through before the snap. So that's mine. I think he'll be a top 2 pick. If I'm being honest, I think it depends on the season. I think if we go 8-5 or better, it goes top two rounds. I think if we go anything below that, it goes maybe 3rd to 5th round. But I think it depends on the season because they take that into account, even though I think that's stupid. But I think if we go 8-5 or better, he's a top 2 round pick.
Spicy. I do think this, though, from a Tyler Shuck standpoint, he is going to absolutely annihilate the pre-draft process. There's going to be multiple teams that fall in love with him. the biggest thing with Tyler Shuck, and everybody knows it, Tyler knows it too. Like, I'm not being a dick for saying this. He's got to stay healthy. Like, that's it. You just got to play games. You know what I mean? Like, because when Tyler Shuck plays games, he does the most important thing any quarterback can do. And what is that? Win football games. I don't care how you get us there. I don't care what you do. I don't care any kind of thing except for one aspect of the game, and that is I have one singular point more than the other team. That is it. And he has done that at a high level at Texas Tech, going 8-1 in the games that he has started and finished. Okay. He is a very good quarterback. And I get the Morton aspect of it. You already know I am the leader of the Tyler Shuck train when it comes down to it, Lyle. You and I are very much simpatico when it comes to that. And it's not a knock on Barron either. I think Barron's a good quarterback too.
Yeah, I think his upside is high. In my opinion, I think his upside is
potentially
higher.
Yeah. But Tyler Shuck right now is one of those guys where I've just been enamored with him since he was in Chandler, Arizona, before he went to Oregon. I mean, let's be honest, Lyle. Before we started recording, you said Brandon Cooks was 40. Bro's not even 30 yet. Put some respect on age, my guy. My God. Trying to get people out of the league, and they still got 3 or 4 more good years. My goodness. What are we doing here? Trying to throw people under the bus.
It's a little shot at the NCAA, man. They give these dudes COVID years, all kind of years, high school years. They get to play 10 years now, man.
You see that Louisville transfer?
Yes.
This one's mind-boggling. There's a Louisville basketball transfer. He's about to transfer for the 4th time and play for his 5th school in 5 years. And he hasn't sat out 1 year.
Bro, I barely got 4 years. You couldn't even get hurt. They wouldn't even when I played.
He started at a community college, transferred to a D2, transferred to a D1 low major, transferred to a mid-major. No, I added an extra piece in there. Mid-major, then Louisville, and now he's transferred to the school. I was like, how is this possible?
That's what I'm saying.
But I guess it's the grad transfer rule now. But
QB1, man, all love, though. All love, man. I had to give you a hard time.
To answer the question, though, I think you might have shortchanged it a little bit. I think Tech has 4 guys drafted next year. I think Tyler Shuck is one. I think one of the guys on the defensive line get drafted, maybe
That's
2
true.
of them.
I think too.
And Hutchings, Bradford. And I'll tell you right now, it's May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Steve Linton is going to be an absolute dog.
Yeah.
Like, if that man stays healthy, I'm telling you right now, he will be top 3 in sacks in the Big 12 next season because he is ridiculous. Syracuse had no idea how to use him properly. And we just talked about Tim DeRuyter. Tim DeRuyter knows how to use an edge rusher better than damn near anybody in the country. And a premier one at that with his athletic ability. And I don't even want to shortchange Miles Cole, who will probably play opposite of him. I think both of those guys have potential to be NFL caliber guys. I also think that there's guys in the secondary, if they stay healthy. Obviously, Rashad Williams, if he can stay healthy, he's the prototypical corner that you want in the modern NFL. He's 6'3", 195, has good hips, gets outside, can play the boundary, can play nickel, can go downhill into the run game too. Like, you love those things. Malik Dunlap can do the same thing. But as with anybody across the country, Lyle, we all know what it comes down to. It's health. If guys can stay healthy, that's what it comes down to.
And I think too, Tyree, I think it's a lot of it, not a lot of it, but some of it's on what he does. You know, if he goes and kills, eyes come. If he goes and he doesn't do so good, they're going to be like, well, we've seen this before. So, like I said, that's why I'm saying, like, his piece is more so for kids to go to the NFL versus opposite ways, for the kids to come, because he's paving the way. And then they're, if he does a great job and then the next person does a great job, then our school now is known for edge rushers. You know what I'm saying? But if he goes and does not do a good job, someone else gets the opportunity, they don't do a good job, then that goes away. So I think, like they say with
it's messed up how that works, but it's 100% true.
So I think it goes hand in hand in how they do it. And the ones in college have to continue to do work too. Because like I said, he can be the best in the NFL. If they don't do work on the edge, it stops with him. So like I said, there's a lot of responsibilities to get to where Nick Saban is and stuff that he's done with his people. Granted, he gets the best college, high school athletes in the country, but still it's been consistent every year. You can go and know. And so I think that's the part that, Tyree has a lot on his shoulder. He don't understand it's not his responsibility to make the next man be good, but
Sure. The eyeball aspect is there, though. That's just
yeah,
what it
it's
comes
there.
down to, because people want to know, hey, is this maybe not a fluke, but just is it a one-hit wonder type deal?
Mm-hmm.
It's just natural. That's how kind of people think until you prove them wrong. We were going to talk about 2023 expectations, Lyle, but what do we say we save that for next week?
Yeah, let's do that, man.
There we go.
It was good. It was good.
That's what we love to hear. Lyle, where can the people follow you on social media?
Hey, y'all can find me at Coach LLEONG, and you can find the man that makes this operation go smoothly.
You can follow me at RCMB323. I don't know about smoothly. It's more like it's more like Broadway in downtown Lubbock, if we're being honest. Just trying to avoid a pothole.
Hey, Recruits is a great place. It's a great place.
Hey, it is. I love it.
Yeah,
I love Lubbock. I'm just saying.
Broadway.
I'm just saying, after a Chimmy's Margs or two and the Uber back home, that road feels like I'm hitting Mount Everest. Okay.
Well, what they created that for is, if ever, to snap you back into your senses. If you're riding, not driving, people, if you're riding with someone, you hit the bumps after, Chimmy's, it brings you back. It brings you back.
Yeah. Also, so you're not going 100 miles an hour down the road.
Right.
That too.
Exactly.
That
Speed.
too. Obviously not drinking and driving going down the road. I'm talking about your Ubers here.
Yes, riding.
That kind of deal. But let us know down below in the comments, pinned comment, how many Red Raiders do you think get drafted? You're going with Lyle? You going with me? I say 4. He says 3. Let us know. How many Red Raiders do you think get drafted in next year's NFL draft, the 2024 NFL draft? I think this is one of the most talented and senior-laden teams that Texas Tech has had in a long time. Again, returning 18 of the possible 22 starters from both sides of the football. Texas Tech has a chance to be really, really good next year. We'll talk about that on the next podcast, 2023 expectations, as those top 25 lists are slowly rolling out. And you might see the Red Raiders in that 20 to 25 range in the preseason. Once again, he's Lyle Young. I am RC Maxfield. Join the largest Texas Tech community here on YouTube and hit that subscribe button to stay in the know on Texas Tech football and men's basketball all year long right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel.